As you know, we ran out of a little bit of time, so we're going to speed it up, which isn't really, what I should do. But we're going to move into the next segment, which is management. As a city council member, what's your role in government?
My role in government is to make sure that the city manager is doing his job. That is our role.
Okay. What relationship should council have with city employees? For example, if an employee came to you to complain about their supervisor, how would you respond?
I would ask that employee, have you spoken to your supervisor? If you haven't, have you spoken to their supervisor, and to take the appropriate chain of command that they should take, and then work their way on up to the assistant city manager, who would be Audra, and human resources, which is Donna Valensich, and then it should go on to the city manager at that point.
Okay.
I should not be involved.
Okay.
Until it goes possibly into an executive session or something like that at an end stage.
Right. And an employee does have the choice of doing an evaluation with council, in front of council in public.
Correct.
Right.
Then we had a city manager a few years ago who wanted it open and not behind closed doors, and that was their personal decision.
And our city attorney, Jean Duran. Some of my favorite meetings. If Mr. Duran's watching this, it's still, I'm going to make a movie out of that. But all right, so again, moving along, and people don't be upset. She's got to be somewhere, and I took up too much of her time. But explain the council manager form of government.
The council manager, you mean city manager versus mayor?
Well, in the charter, it says we have a council manager form of government. Now, I'll prompt you a little bit, as I did with the other people. Denver and Colorado Springs has a mayor-council type of government.
Correct.
Pueblo is talking about a mayor-council type of government. That is, that when you're elected mayor, you are the city manager. Mm-hmm. And I'm doing this because I can see this conversation happening here. And I'm just wondering how people feel about that, if they're in favor of electing someone who's, done whatever job to be the city manager.
I don't agree with the approach that somebody should be elected mayor and also serve as a city manager. I think you need somebody with that expertise and education. And in Trinidad, unfortunately, we do not have that. For example, John Suthers in Colorado Springs, I know he's not in that position alone, that he has people under him that are hired, and mayor in that town does pay quite well. City of Trinidad doesn't have the financing to be able to do that, but I also think we need to have somebody who has a degree in city management and city financing and knows what they're doing.
Okay.
I don't see anybody that could be elected into that position that could handle it.
Even if we had one person or two people, how long would that last?
Right. And I think you'd end up also with the monopoly effect too, that you'd have one person totally in control, and you don't want that.
Right.
You want somebody that...
I think the discussion might, because it's done in Pueblo, and I agree, in Colorado Springs, I believe, according to some that I've read, they aren't too happy with Suthers' predecessor, and so Suthers still is, in a phase of, we'll see. We're not sure if this is the best route, even for a city that size. But I just expect that it'll come to this community too in time. But moving along, this is really an important one because we've had a lot of these and do every meeting. But what is executive session? What can be discussed in executive session? And what if an illegal or improper decision or discussion would take place in executive session? What would you do?
Executive session is when the council meets behind closed doors without other people from the public in there, and they do not allow filming or recording. Well, they do allow audio recording, but it's not allowed to the public, is my understanding, and it violates well, let me back up. So an executive session can only use for personnel matters and confidential dealings, but you can't use that to block things from the press because it's a violation of the Sunshine Law. And it can be abused very easily. So I would not allow a lot of things to go into executive session that I didn't feel they were personnel or private matters. I would say, no, that's not appropriate, and that we need to bring it back out into regular agenda and a regular meeting session.
Okay. Sarah, we discussed this earlier, the referendums. 2, 3, 4, and 5, I have them here in front of me. We can have you read them. You can just tell how you feel about them, however you want to handle this, considering the time that we have. What do you want to do?
I am against all of them, and I
Okay.
am willing to state that to you.
Okay, let me just say this, referendum 2, 3, 4, and 5. So, because there was, and I don't know why there isn't one. Somebody asked, well, where's one? It's like, I don't know, but you're against all 4 of them.
All of them.
Okay.
I don't feel that we need any changes to the Home Rule Charter. I feel that, especially with the Parks and Rec Advisory Board, which is very near and dear to my heart, like I said, I served on that board for 12 years. If they aren't doing a plan for every 5 years, a lot of things can go into disrepair and a lot of problems can happen. We found problems every year. And you need people that are involved and active and have children or grandchildren in the community, because we found graffiti in bathrooms and playgrounds that were in total disrepair, like the Portland and 9th Street playground we found was in horrible condition, and we were able to get it redone, and then unfortunately it fell down again, and then it had to be repaired again. And the other park, when the soccer field was built, it was built without bathrooms, and we were able to put a change to that. And then also over there at Central Park, when they moved the playground from back by the baseball field to down by the Highway 12 on Stonewall, we were able to get them, the city manager came out and actually looked at the playground after we got him out there and said, look at this. And the poles that were placed there by the playground were put there because the Parks and Rec Advisory Board said, this is a problem. We don't want a car to come through here and hit a child. Interestingly enough, after those poles went in the following couple weeks, there was a horrible accident at each intersection, each corner, surrounding that playground. Not at the playground, but still very close. That was like, oh, geez. And I think that the Parks and Rec Advisory Board needs to come up with a plan and then needs to do addendums to it. They don't have to do the whole plan again, but they need to follow up with that to make sure that certain areas aren't being overlooked or overshadowed. And so I'm really against changing that. And the other ones, I just don't think that we need the changes to the Home Rule Charter. I think that people need to read the ordinances before they're voted on and not just depend on council to read it themselves. And I think that they ought to stay the way they are. So yes, I'm against all of them. I'm sorry.
No, you don't have to apologize. That's the whole idea. Let people express their opinion so the voters know. Okay, we're coming to the second to last part here. And this is where, as I said before, it's been a conversation between you and I. Mm-hmm. But I have been very diligent with everybody in saying, okay, these are lengthy interviews, but also at this point, you get to say whatever you want. We've been talking face-to-face here, but I want you to look at this camera here. And whether you take 30 seconds or 30 minutes, this is your time, and you can say whatever you want. But look at the camera, not at me.
Thank you for listening today, and I would like and appreciate your vote for City Council. My name is Sara Jane Ruybalid. Thank you.
That was the shortest and simplest. Sometimes that's the most effective. We're not done. I got to wrap it up yet. Oh. And I just want to tell you what I've said to everybody. And I've said this to City Council. I'm excited because I think we have a really good group of people running. That's what's encouraging to me. I have the feeling that a lot of people have expressed too at council meetings is, you know, we've gone through this up and down, and I feel like we're starting to do this. The feeling in town is a little bit better, but the fact that you're running, and I think it's 10 other people, that is encouraging. That means people care enough about our community because this is a commitment, and you're willing to put your name on the ballot and go for it.
Oh.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Tom Murphy, and this is Trinidad Now on Trinidad Times Television. We're done. That's a wrap. We've got to watch this on YouTube. Thank you, folks.